In our series, School Matters, new research shows a child's age compared to their classmates could impact their mental and behavioral health. A study in JAMA Pediatrics looked at data for more than 1 million kids aged 14 to 15. Researchers in Britain found the youngest children in a class have a roughly 30% higher chance of developing depression compared to their oldest peers in the same class. And apart from depression, they also have an increased chance of being diagnosed with ADHD and learning disabilities. Psychologist and CBS News contributor Lisa Damour is here. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning.
As you said, everyone has an opinion about this because we all fall somewhere on the calendar.
Yes.
Why might younger students be more likely to have symptoms of depression and ADHD?
So what we have to remember is development unfolds on its own time. You can't force development forward. So that means that if a child is relatively immature in the class, maybe because of age, they will not necessarily have the skills for attention that the older kids will have. So they may be more likely to show up with questions about whether or not they have ADHD.
The tricky thing is that this is an issue for parents that may develop when the kid's in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, but the decision started in kindergarten.
It's made younger.
Yeah.
It's true, and we have to be careful because if we push kids ahead or they're very young in the class, they can feel a step behind, both intellectually and also socially.
Yeah.
You know, social cueing among kids is pretty subtle.
Yeah.
And so for kids who are young, there can be an awareness that they're missing out or they don't really understand the social landscape, but they don't know what they're missing or they don't know how to fit in. And it can be really hard on their self-esteem. And we think that can open the door to questions about
So if parents
sadness,
have to make
depression.
that decision, if they have to make the decision, should I hold you back
Yep.
or not? What factors should go into making a decision like that?
So there's a lot
They have
we
the
can
option.
do. A lot we can do to get this right. First of all, we have to remember development is multifaceted. There is intellectual development, there's social development, there's emotional development, there's physical development. You don't want one of those driving the decision. So someone might say, my 4-year-old reads, put him ahead.
Yeah.
But if the 4-year-old can't share, we should reconsider. Similarly, you can have a kid who's terrifically skilled socially, but lagging academically. So look at the whole picture. The other thing I will say is ask the teachers.
Yeah.
If your child's a preschooler, you have preschool teachers who have watched your child all year. You know your preschooler, they are comparing your children to hundreds of preschoolers. We also cannot be neutral about our own children.
Right.
It's not a possibility.
Oh, that's
we
right.
cannot be
Mine are
neutral.
objectively cute. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yes.
And teachers have actually seen your child in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure, I would say to a teacher, you know my kid. If she were your kid, what would you do in these situations?
Yeah.
And take that very seriously. Teachers are experts in child
I
development.
think there's a natural reluctance as a parent to acknowledge your child may need to be held back. But the consequences down the road if you don't do it, when you find out you have to make them hold back a grade, can be really serious.
They can. When parents and I are thinking about this, I always say, err on the side of caution. Give your child another year of childhood. If you're wrong, we can offer enrichment later. If they're bored in school, we can offer enrichment later. If you push a child ahead and it's the bad call, you are then looking at the possibility of your child playing catch up for the rest of education, or worse, having to repeat a grade.
Right, which is very humiliating for a kid.
Because then you're labeled for the rest of the time you're at the school.
Devastating for kids. So I want to avoid that at all costs.
Is there a connection between physical development and emotional and behavioral development in kids? And is there a difference between girls and boys?
So this is interesting. So obviously, older kids are more likely to be ahead physically in their development, which means better coordination. And especially for boys, it can also, especially down the line, have to do with size and strength.
Yeah.
So for boys who are big and strong in a class, there's often a lot of social currency caught up with that, especially if they're good athletes.
Yeah.
So sometimes nobody really notices the distinction, and then puberty hits. And all of a sudden, the kids who are on the front edge of that have a lot more social currency, boys in particular. And so it can be a very weighty decision at age 5 when we think about the implications down the line. For boys in particular.
Physical and emotional development definitely aren't in tandem. I mean, it's like with 12-year-olds, it can be like an airport with the planes taken off, but there's no air traffic control.
Yes.
That's a very good analogy. Very nice. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.